Clara Hayes stepped down from the stagecoach, boots hitting the dry earth with a soft thud. The small town of Dry Creek looked half asleep under the midday sun, its single street lined with weathered wooden buildings, a saloon on one end, a general store on the other. She tightened her grip on her carpet bag, swallowing hard. She had no plan beyond this moment, only a letter in her pocket and a hope that somewhere out here she could start over. Need help with that? She turned to see a tall, dust-covered man leaning against a hitching post. His Stetson shadowed his eyes, but she could tell he was watching her closely, as if trying to figure out what she was doing here. "I'm fine," she said quickly, though her voice betrayed her nerves. "Town's not much for strangers," he said, not unkindly. "You got someone waiting on you?" Clara hesitated. "No," she admitted. "Not anymore." He nodded once as if that explained everything. "Name's Caleb Turner. My ranch is up the road. You looking for work or just a place to sit a spell?" Clara hesitated. She didn't want to admit that she had no money, no family, and nowhere else to go. "I can pay fair wages," Caleb said after a moment. "House could use some keepin', and my little sister could use some company." It wasn't a promise, but it was something. Clara nodded. "I'll take it." Caleb's ranch was quiet, almost too quiet. The big sky stretched endlessly above them, and the only sound was the wind in the grass and the occasional lowing of cattle. Caleb showed her the small, clean room she'd be staying in, then disappeared to work the fences. Clara spent the day dusting shelves, sweeping floors, and mending a torn curtain. It was honest work, and she found herself breathing easier than she had in weeks. That night, she joined Caleb and his sister Lucy for supper. The meal was simple: beans, biscuits, and strong coffee. But it felt more like home than anything Clara had known in a long time. "You don't talk much, do you?" Clara asked Caleb, trying to break the silence. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Not unless I've got something worth saying." Clara smiled faintly. "And do you?" "Not yet," he said, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, a quiet sadness maybe, or a secret she couldn't name. The days turned into weeks, and Clara began to notice the way Caleb would work from dawn until well past dark, as if he was trying to outrun something. One evening, a storm rolled in fast and mean. Clara stood at the window, watching the lightning split the horizon. Caleb came in drenched, water streaming from his hat and coat. "You should dry off," she said softly. He nodded, but instead of going to his room, he sank into a chair, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. "Caleb?" she asked, kneeling beside him. His voice was quiet, almost lost under the thunder. "I promised myself I wouldn't get close to anyone again. Folks have a way of leaving, but—" He looked at her then, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "But you're still here." Clara reached for his hand, feeling the calluses against her skin. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. The storm passed, but something had shifted between them. Caleb didn't make promises when he never said he'd keep her safe, never said he'd stay. But his actions spoke louder. He taught her to ride, patient even when she was nervous. He let her sit with him at the campfire, sharing quiet moments under the stars. He started smiling again, small fleeting smiles, but they lit up his face. And Clara realized that sometimes love didn't come with grand vows or fancy words. Sometimes it came quietly, like rain soaking into the earth. One evening, as the sun bled across the horizon in gold and crimson, Caleb took her hand. "I didn't promise you nothing when you got off that stagecoach," he said. "But if you'll have me, I want to give you everything I can." Tears filled Clara's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. The wedding was small, just Lucy, the pastor, and a handful of neighbors. But it was perfect. Clara stood barefoot in the grass, wearing a simple white dress Lucy had helped her sew. Caleb didn't promise her riches or easy days, but as he slipped the ring onto her finger, she felt richer than she had ever been. He had promised her nothing, but he had given her everything. The first year on the Turner ranch was good, almost too good. The cattle were strong, the grass grew thick, and Clara found herself laughing more than she ever had. But the second year came with drought. Day after day, the sun burned overhead, turning the grass to brittle straw and the creek bed to cracked mud. One evening, Caleb came in late, dust covering him from head to boots. "Any luck?" Clara asked softly. He shook his head. "Creek's bone dry. Gonna have to drive the herd further for water tomorrow." Clara touched his arm. "We'll get through this." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. We will, together. The drought brought more than thirst. It brought fire. Clara woke one night to the smell of smoke. She shook Caleb awake, heart pounding. By the time they got outside, the horizon was glowing red, fire racing through the dry grass toward their pasture. Get Lucy, Caleb shouted. Clara grabbed the girl, ushering her into the wagon. Caleb rode out toward the cattle, his silhouette framed by firelight. Hours later, smoke-stained and exhausted, he returned. Lost some fences, he said hoarsely. But the herd's safe. Clara threw her arms around him, tears mixing with soot. Don't you ever scare me like that again, she whispered. Caleb held her tight. I promised you nothing, remember? He said with a tired smile. And you still gave me everything, she replied. Weeks passed before the smoke smell faded and the land began to recover. Clara planted flowers near the porch, saying it was good luck. One evening, Caleb came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Land's coming back, he murmured. So are we. Clara leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. We already made it through the worst, she said softly. Yeah, Caleb said, pressing a kiss to her temple. And we'll face whatever comes next. As long as you're here, I reckon that's all I need. By the following spring, the ranch was green again. Clara stood by the corral, one hand resting on the small curve of her belly. Caleb walked up, eyes softening when he saw her. Reckon the place will be ready by the time he, or she, shows up, he said with a grin. Clara smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. This ranch, it's not just yours anymore, Caleb, it's ours. Caleb tipped his hat back, looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered. I may not have promised you much, he said quietly, but I swear to you, this little one will grow up knowing they were loved every single day. Clara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Months later, as the first cries of their newborn filled the small ranch house, Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, tears in his eyes. Clara, exhausted but smiling, whispered, You've given me more than I ever dreamed. Caleb took the tiny bundle in his arms, his calloused hands cradling the baby gently. No, he said softly, eyes shining. You gave me everything.
Like, share, and subscribe.